Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, and a voice of radio. So today, we're going to be taking a look at a winning LickiLicky deck. There is someone over in Japan that has managed to go and do a win with the new LickiLicky. Do you want to see a winning LickiLicky list? Because I very much want to see a winning LickiLicky list. I very, very much want to. So, this new LickiLicky then. Oh, this is going to be a tongue twister pretty quickly. What does it do? Well, it's going to be coming out in Unified Minds for us, so it's been out in Japan for a little bit of a while now. And our translations, as always, for all these unreleased cards, come from the lovely David Hochmann over at limitlesstcg.com/translations. And it's a stage 1, and it's got 150 HP, which isn't particularly impressive. But it's got really nice attacks. Now, 1 colourless energy, 40 damage is fine if there's a Ditto Prism Star hat in your face, but generally here we're talking about the second attack. 3 colourless energy, 90 damage, discard a random card from your opponent's hand, and a random card from the top of their deck. I say random, it's the only card on top of their deck. And an energy from their active Pokemon. I think when I did a video about LickiLicky first time round, I basically said you discard everything. And you basically do here. 1 card from their hand, 1 card from their deck, and an energy from the active. You are severely limiting their options here, ladies and gentlemen. You are making it very, very awkward for them. And that's generally the plan here. That's generally the deck. The goal here is get LickiLicky set up and roll. And just discard from their hand, discard from their deck, discard their energy. No, you're not doing a huge amount of damage, you're doing 90 damage. And no, you're not some powerhouse Pokemon. Although we are playing 4 copies of buff padding, so most of the time here you should be having effectively 180 HP, which is very nice. But generally speaking here, the goal is to just kind of 2 or 3 hit KO, depending on what you're up against, while wrecking their hand and discarding their deck and discarding their energy. You make them struggle to get energy attached, while you discard cards from their hand, while you mill their deck, and you are going to take away options. There are going to be games where you take away the supporter from their hand, while discarding a supporter from the top of their deck, and they have nothing and lose. Sometimes, because you're really disrupting their hand and their deck, you are going to put them in a position where they just can't get set up. And against decks that attack single energy, the fact that you're discarding their energy is going to be huge. Then the fact that you're discarding from their deck and their hand makes it way less likely they're going to be able to get more energy in the future. And you see where we're going with this. It's great. Now, there are a couple of other Pokemon we play here, but not a huge amount. We are playing 1 copy of Eevee and Snorlax Tag Team GX. Partly it's colourless energy and we can accelerate to it the same way we accelerate to LickiLicky. But partly here, it's just a big beefy attacker. Now, sometimes you need either a blocker, you got 270 HP, or you need a way to get a really big attack. GX attack here, 210 damage, and if you got an extra energy on draw till you got 10 cards in hand. Main attack, 240 to an evolution Pokemon. It's not great against a basic, you're doing 120. Against Tag Team GXs, that's naff all. This is your emergency, I need a big KO, it's all going wrong kind of attack. When you just really can't get anything going. Or where your opponent just has something that can take you out. But most of the time, it's LickiLicky in the active. Now, we do also have a Volcanion here, or a couple of Volcanion. These are the new ones from Unbroken Bonds. Now, if you go second, then on the very first turn, or your very first turn of the game, you can search for free fire energy and attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. Generally speaking, you search for 1, but it's you attach 1 energy to this, and then search for an energy and attach. Unless you can get this off 2 or 3 times, you might as well just attached to LickiLicky. But it's nice going second. And then 2 energy, 110 if you've got 4 fire energy in play. I mean, look, it's not amazing, but sometimes this will be enough. It hits more than LickiLicky. You don't really want to be attacking with this, but you need a backup plan for if your disrupting plan is failing. And if your disrupting plan is failing, they're set up, they've got loads of energy, etc., Eevee and Snorlax and Volcanion can help you out. Now, in terms of energy, we've got double colourless energy, because there's lots of colourless Pokemon here. And we've got fire energy. And let's spoil the surprise, although you've probably figured it out by now. This is a deck that relies on Welder. Welder allows you to attach 2 fire energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon and draw 3 cards. It's why we can play Volcanion. It's how we can get the energy on LickiLicky fast enough. Doesn't matter what energy you play, so clearly here, fire's the best choice. Because you've got Welder. And that's basically it. Now, don't get me wrong, we've got other things we use here. We have got the upcoming Giant Furnace, which is Viridian Forest, except instead of searching for 1 basic energy, you search for 2 fire energy when you discard a card from your hand. And we've got a couple of Fire Crystal here to get the energy out of our discard pile. There are other reasons to play fire. Weirdly, no Heat Factory Prism Star, which I probably would be playing. But having said that, there's not a huge amount of fire energy in this deck, so maybe that's the reason. But either way, it's still kind of fun. That's why we play fire. So what other trainers do we play? Other than the 4 Welder, we play 4 Green Search, or Green's Exploration. If you've got no Pokemon in play with abilities, none of your Pokemon have abilities, then you get to search for any 2 trainer cards and put them in your hand. Like Welder, like Buff Padding, or indeed any of the others. Then, of course, we've got a couple copies of Guzma, drags a Pokemon off the bench while also acting as a switch. And then we've got a copy of Cynthia here. It's just generally good draw. Shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 6 cards. And a copy of Judge. You only get 4 cards, but you also put your opponent down to a 4-card hand. It's a nice bit of disruption. And then in terms of Pokemon search, we've actually got 2 copies of Pokemaniac. Pokemaniac lets you search for 4 Pokemon with a retreat cost of 4 and put them into your hand. Well, Lickitung has a retreat cost of 4. And LickiLicky has a retreat cost of 4. And this is one of the reasons why we're happy playing Eevee and Snorlax here, because it has a retreat cost of 4. You can get it with Pokemaniac. Volcanion doesn't, but it's 1 Pokemon in your deck. And we're still playing 3 copies of Nest Ball and 2 copies of Ultra Ball here, so it's not like we don't have any other options. We've got some other options here. We do then, of course, play 3 copies of Pokegear 3.0. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, get used to seeing Pokegear. It's a phenomenal card. You look at the top 7 cards of your deck, you find a supporter card, you put it in your hand. This is going to be a staple in a whole heap of decks, and I've said it before, if you don't have any copies from Heart Gold, Soul Silver, go and get some copies from Unbroken Bonds. This isn't going to get any cheaper, it's only going to go up in price. This is going to be a phenomenal card until it rotates out. And then we've got 2 copies of Switch. It's the downside of having high retreat Pokemon. You've got to make sure you can get them out the active if you need to. 1 copy of Rescue Stretcher to get your Pokemon back. That's fairly important. We said about the 2 copies of Fire Crystal. We said about the Buff Padding. We said about the Giant Furnace. We have 1 copy of Power Plant. Turns off EX and GX abilities. And look, we don't use any EX or GX abilities, but our opponent might be using stuff like Dedenne or a million other things. It's nice to be able to turn it off. We see 1 copy of Field Blower to get rid of tools and stadiums, which is always kind of handy. We see 1 copy of Crushing Hammer. Now, I'm going to be honest, this confuses me ever so slightly. It's just Crushing Hammer, 1 copy, and it's on a coin flip. In half your games, it's a wasted card. But you're already discarding energy with LickiLicky, and the best I can say about it is this. There will be the odd game where after discarding with LickiLicky, you then hit a heads on Crushing Hammer, and you have a lot of fun. That's the best you're going to do. But we also see a couple copies of Reset Stamp. Your opponent shuffles a hand into their deck and draws a number of cards equal to their remaining prize cards. This is a phenomenal card, which is great for comebacks. You see, the thing about LickiLicky is there are going to be many, many games where you fall behind. Because you're doing 90 damage, but you're also disrupting. So what happens is you sit there disrupting, and you're only doing 90 damage, and it's not quite enough, but then you're disrupting. And eventually, your opponent runs out of steam, and then you reset stamp them. They get 1 or 2 cards, there's nothing they can do, and you disrupt them until they lose. Because not only do you put them down to a 2-card hand, but you put them down to a 2-card hand, and then discard a card from their hand, and then discard a card from their deck. There's none of this, I'll draw my Cynthia eventually. Yeah, not if I discard it off the top of your deck, mate. There's no, I've got 1 DC left in my deck, I'll be fine. Not if I discard it off the top card of your deck, mate. That's what I love about LickiLicky. There are going to be games where it goes wrong. There are going to be games where your opponent sets up too fast. But there are going to be other games where you disrupt them and reset stamp and keep disrupting them and win. And I adore this deck. I think there's going to be some bad matchups in tournaments. And I think there's going to be some other games where your opponent just sits there because there's nothing they can do. And you will have a lot of fun. Your opponent won't. So that's what I think, ladies and gentlemen, but I would very much like to know what you think. So please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at The Wasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WasiPlays, where we talk about games that don't have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.